Hello my lovely students, and welcome to this video on Hermes or Mercury. Here's all the stuff you need to know and why, and here he is. So, his title or epithet is generally Messenger of Zeus, Messenger of the Gods, or Giant Killer. He's a bit metal. His symbols, he is generally shown fully grown or bearded or just with a beard, a beautiful young man. He always has a wide-brimmed hat. That's a traveller's hat that stops your nose getting sunburnt when you're going around. He's also got his very famous winged sandals that allow him to fly and are a byword for being speedy. And he's got his messenger staff, the caduceus. You should probably pronounce this caduceus, but I seem to pronounce it caduceus, and no one's going to stop me doing it, sadly. It's called the keracheion in ancient Greek. This is a staff with wings at the top and intertwined serpents, which gets simplified into a staff with a sort of upside down letter C at the top. Now, this is not a medical symbol. Fun fact, this symbol was actually used in America by a publisher, and these publishers made medical books. And in the American Army, when they were looking around for a symbol for the medical corps, they saw that symbol on the spine of the medical books, assumed it was a medical symbol, and bingo. Now, because of that simple error, loads of medical stuff is incorrectly labelled with Hermes caduceus instead of the rod of Asclepius, which is actually a medical symbol, Asclepius being a god of medicine, a son of Apollo, and his symbol is a rod with one snake wrapped around it. So this is why classics is important. His responsibilities, or what he's known for. He is the messenger of the gods. That is his first and foremost responsibility. He has this staff, the caduceus. It shows he's a messenger. Human messengers would also carry this staff, and you can see the simplified version in the image on the right. But that staff is special. He can also apparently put humans to sleep with it. He also has his winged sandals. This is a byword for speed. Anything with wings in mythology is meant to be fast. He also is an inventor. He invents the lyre, which is the stringed instrument, the pipes, or his son Pan invents the pipes, the panpipes, the musical scale, as you would imagine, to do with the lyre and the pipes, but also astronomy, weights and measures, boxing, gymnastics, and the care of olive trees. Now that sounds like a really random selection of things, but they can all be traced back to what he is sort of god of, which is thievery, boundaries, and thus things that also cross boundaries, trade, travel, shepherds, and the like. So all of these things link to this idea of him as a traveller's god. He is also the furthest traveller. He will be the one to lead you to the underworld when your soul leaves your body. And the technical term for that is psychopomp, which is a pretty awesome word, which literally means leader of souls. His birth story. Now, I said he was a bit metal. Prepare yourselves. Hermes is the son of Zeus and the nymph Maia, one of the daughters of Atlas. She sheltered in a cave on Mount Kyllene to hide her child. Just after he had been born, Hermes crawled out of the cave, found a tortoise, then killed it and scooped it out. He then saw some cows, which happened to have belonged to Apollo, so killed some and pulled their guts out. Then he stretched those guts into strings. With his cow gut strings and tortoise body, he invented the first lyre. That is very inventive and not at all absolutely terrifying. Now, Apollo was really annoyed that his cows were dead, and he came to complain about the loss of his cows to Maia, but Maia wouldn't believe that her newborn son could possibly have killed these cows. However, baby Hermes then started playing the lyre that he'd made out of the things that he had killed only that morning, and Apollo, the god of music, fell in love with the instrument and took it in exchange. So yeah, now some notes on him from Greece and Rome. His name in Greek the word Hermes, we don't really know what that means, but his Roman name Mercury seems to come from merx, meaning merchandise, things. That links to him as being the god of trade, but also the god of thieves, people that steal things. It's possibly also from Etruscan, the people who were already there in Italy when apparently the Trojans turned up, and they influenced what became Rome. There was possibly an actual Etruscan god that was later associated with Hermes, and they were blended together into Mercury. He is seen as someone in a traveller's hat, with his caduceus, with his winged sandals, and sometimes traveller's robes, a traveller's cloak, a chlamys. In Rome, he's essentially seen as the same, with his traveller's hat, his caduceus, his winged sandals. Later, they add wings onto his hat, which I don't think could be particularly comfortable if he's flying with his hat like under his chin. Anyway, it's a whole look. But yeah, so you do tend to see him with wings on his hat in Roman iconography. By the way, he is not the only messenger of the gods. He's the more famous one because he tends to take messages from Zeus, the king of the gods, and he's generally the main messenger. But there is also Iris, a female messenger. She also carries a caduceus, and she actually has wings on her back, again symbolising speed. She's actually the personification of the rainbow, which is why the coloured bit of your eye is called Iris. She tends to be sent by the female gods, mostly by Hera or Juno. In Greece and Rome, he is the only other god other than Dionysus who travels to the underworld to meet Hades or to bring souls. And because of this, because he travels over all boundaries, not just countries, not just seas, but even between the lives of the living and the dead, he comes to be the god of boundaries. And so he is represented outside a house where you go from the boundary of the public space into the private space by a statue called a Herm, short for Hermes. It's rude. If you don't want to see a rude thing, close your eyes. There you go. So each of these statues, these boundary markers that were also outside people's houses and showed the boundaries of towns and villages, has a phallus on it. Not just a little bust of Hermes. And you can see a selection here from different time periods. Yes, the phallus was a lucky ornament. Isn't that nice? In Rome, because the Roman Empire stretched from Britain all the way to Syria and Germany and Egypt, as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, he was very important as the protector of travellers. And he became a popular household god as well because of these links with wealth and trade. The Romans are all about that wealth. And so you would find small votive statuettes of Mercury in the household shrines, the Lararia. But they also sometimes used Hermes in Rome. These didn't always have Hermes at the top or Mercury at the top. Sometimes they actually had a bust of the man of the house, like Caecilius. I dare you to Google Caecilius's Herm. If you don't know who Caecilius is, you are missing out. Now, we have some stories about Hermes, but the most famous one is how he got that incredible epithet, giant killer. Here is Argus, the 100-eyed. Zeus had fallen for a princess called Io. Yes, it involves Zeus trying to get his end away with yet another mortal woman. Either he turned Io into a cow to hide her from Hera, or Hera tried to hide Io from Zeus by turning her into a cow. Either way, Io is a cow, right? And either way, Hera sets a watchman to look out for this cow, who is a titan called Argus the 100-eyed. He's clearly an incredibly good watchman. He's got 100 eyes. If some of them are asleep, some of them are awake. He never stops looking. So this would mean Zeus wouldn't be able to come close to Io. Now Zeus didn't like that, obviously. He asked his son Hermes, the boundary crosser, the god of thieves, to steal Io from under Argus's watch. Now Hermes does this by lulling Argus to sleep. He either does this with his magical caduceus or his long and boring stories. Either way, Argus's eyes all closed. And when Argus's last eye closed, Hermes stabbed Argus to death and stole Io. In revenge for her watchman's death, Hera sent gadflies to sting Io into madness. Yet again, the poor girl is the one that gets punished. And took Argus's eyes out and set them in her favourite bird, the peacock's tail. And the peacock ends up being this symbol of jealousy. Hermes gains this epithet, giant killer, and it seems so incongruous. Oh, Hermes crossing some boundaries, is also the giant killer. But that is his other most popular epithet. Hermes also turns up in lots of mythology, and the most famous moment is when he gives Odysseus advice in Odyssey Book 10. So Odysseus is on the island of Aia trying to rescue his party of scouts that he has just heard from their leader Eurylochus, who ran back scared, that they went into a mysterious woman, probably a goddess's house, and they didn't come back out. On his way to this palace, Hermes turns up, pretending to be just a regular young guy, but one who apparently knows exactly what's happened to Odysseus's men. They've been turned into pigs by the witch goddess Circe, who was the woman in the house. Hermes gives Odysseus exact instructions as to how to defeat Circe, and gives him a magical plant to eat, the plant moly. This will stop Circe's magic having any effect. No one really knows what moly is. It might have been the mandrake, which is another mythical plant, but it possibly might have been the snowdrop, which actually does have qualities in it that would maybe counteract a poison. Then Hermes disappears and allows Odysseus to go off and hopefully follow all his instructions. Hermes hasn't done this because he's been necessarily ordered by the gods or because he likes Odysseus particularly much, but it's in fact because Odysseus is his great-grandson. The gods only ever do stuff for humans if they have a vested interest in them. And he's actually related to Odysseus. And that's why Odysseus is so tricksy. He is related to Hermes, literally the trickster god. Hermes has lots of children. He crosses boundaries, guys. So he's got immortal children. Pan. Pan is a satyr-like Greek god of nature. He's half human and half goat. He's a god of nature, the shepherds, the flocks in the fields, and he was said to be the son of Hermes through the nymph Dryope. In the Homeric hymn to Pan, Pan's poor mother ran away from the newborn god because she was so terrified of what he looked like. Poor old Pan, potentially the inventor of the Pan pipes. He's also the father of Hermaphroditus. Hermaphroditus was the son of Hermes through Aphrodite, so Hermaphroditus' name mixes Hermes with Aphrodite's. However, Hermaphroditus is more commonly known as an intersex person. He was initially stalked by this really horrible nymph called Salmacis, who would not leave him alone. Salmacis grabbed him, made a wish that they would never be separated, and the gods granted her wish incredibly literally, turning Hermaphroditus and Salmacis into one person with the sexual organs of both a man and a woman. There are other immortal children, such as Eros is sometimes attributed to Hermes as a child, although there are lots of stories about Eros' parentage, and it's also suggested he's a primordial god. But more interestingly, Tyche, the goddess of luck or fortune, is meant to be child of Hermes. She holds a rudder to symbolise how your luck can change direction, and that sort of links to trickery. Her Roman name is Fortuna. He also has some mortal children. Poor old Abderus, who is a friend of Heracles and is devoured by the mares of Diomedes when he's helping Heracles steal them. When Heracles goes off to kill Diomedes, who has taught his mares how to eat human flesh, poor old Abderus actually gets eaten by the horses. And of course, I mentioned already Ortilochus, the prince of thieves, the granddad of Odysseus, is also a child of Hermes or Mercury. So overall, Hermes gets known for his messenger abilities, and that generally tends to be it. But he's a trickster, a killer, a thief, a psychopomp, all-round mischievous guy, as well as a byword for invention. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the playlist where all the Olympians will be explained to you for your fun or GCSE needs.